Hello, Accounting Superstars. This is Professor Don Bush from the Accounting Superstar channel. Glad you're here. I've been a professor for about 30 years and a CPA for about that long, and I've got great ways to explain accounting. Today, we're going to figure out what this current ratio is all about. So this might be your first semester in accounting or maybe your second semester in accounting, and you're learning how to look at financial statements and tell you what they mean. And folks, if you want to become an investor, invest in the stock market, that kind of thing, or run your own business, this is really good stuff. This tells you how your business is doing, all right? And I can't imagine running a business and not knowing how it's going, but there are people that do that, or at least attempt to do it. And I've worked with a few managers that were really good at these ratios, and they were really, truly great managers, and I really respected them. But those good managers, they knew about these ratios and how to read them and look at them. Most people don't. Most people don't. All right. But it's easy. It is so easy. All right. Hey, before we get started, two things here. One thing is hit the like and subscribe button. That way YouTube will know that you like these videos. I'll know that you like these videos, and that way I'll make more videos for you. Also, if in the comments, you can write down what other videos you'd like to see, what other topics that are giving you trouble in accounting. So, and the second thing is these musical instruments back here, like the guitar and the drums. You can kind of see the drums back there. I actually play these instruments. I also have a piano and a flute and a didgeridoo. You can kind of see the didgeridoo back there too, I think, maybe. But anyways, I actually play these instruments, and I've played them for a real long time, my whole life, really. And this last weekend, I did a show up in the big town of Fairplay, Colorado. If you know where Fairplay is, it's not a big place, but it was a lot of fun. There was a few hundred people watching the show, so it's a good time. The picture here is of me during the sound check before the show started. So anyways, good times, a lot of fun. Hope to do many more shows. So let's get going here, guys. The current ratio. What's the current ratio all about? Well, what it is we're trying to figure out, well, is the company able to pay its bills? Is its ability to pay the bills getting better, or is it getting worse? What's going on here? So the current ratio is a very rough indicator on how the company is doing regarding paying its bills. Now, one thing about ratios is we're just comparing two things. So ratios are not very hard. We're just comparing two things. Never three, never four, never five, only two. All right, that's it. And so we're comparing two things that seem to be related together. We think they're related together. And so when it comes to paying your bills, two things that are related together is, well, the amount of your bills, how much do you have in bills? Also, how much money do you have to pay your bills, right? Okay, so this is just a rough indicator. It's not cast in stone. Now, one thing that a lot of students do, and a lot of people do, is that maybe they know enough to calculate the current ratio, but they don't really look into it and think about it. And they'll just calculate the ratio, and they'll say, oh, that's good, or that's bad, or whatever. But there's a little more to it. And so I'll tell you a little bit more of the subtleties here. So that way you'll be a little wiser. All right, so here's the formula right here. Now, I said we compare two different things, two things that we think are related. So we've got current assets and current liabilities. So current assets divided by current liabilities. That's how we're comparing the two. Now, what the heck are current liabilities? Now, if you're in your first semester of accounting, I can see getting away not knowing what current assets or current liabilities are. But if you're in your second semester or intermediate accounting, shame on you, you should know this, okay? So current assets, those are items that are either cash or are going to be turned into cash within the year. Now, there's a little bit more technical definition to that. And I won't go into the more technical definition because this is good enough for now. So current assets, things that are going to be turned into cash or turned into cash. I'm sorry, things that are either cash right now or turned into cash within 1 year. We'll use that definition. Current liabilities, these are bills that you have right now or bills that you're going to have within a year, all right, that are due within a year. So we're comparing these two things to get an indication of our ability to pay our bills. So how do we do it? Well, we got to know what current assets are, all right? And what we'll do is we'll write them down. We'll put them right up here. So I need to split the screen. But before I do, I'm going to go down here and show you what I have here. I've got financial statements for the Sunset Sailboat Company. It's a fictitious company that makes sailboats. And here's what's been going on for the last few years, okay? The last 4 years. And so we want to know, well, is our ability to pay our bills getting better or worse? How are we doing on that? Because that's a pretty important thing. If you don't pay your bills on time, you'll be out of business pronto, okay? Super important. All right, so what are current assets? Okay, current assets are things that are either cash already, and here's cash right here. So I'm going to highlight it. So there we go. So it's either cash or things that are going to be turned into cash within 1 year. So, or could be, And so accounts receivable, that's money that customers owe us. And hopefully those customers are going to pay us within a year. So if not, if customers are not going to pay us within a year, we would not want to include this. Inventory, hopefully we're going to sell this inventory within the year. And if we don't think we will, well, we better not include it, but we'll include it for now. And then short-term investments. Now, short-term investments we might keep, for a long time, but we could sell them, all right, if they're liquid. Liquid means they can be turned into cash. Very common term here. So for today's lesson, we'll say, okay, current assets are cash, accounts receivable, inventory, and short-term investments. So what you would do is you would add it up and get a grand total. So here are the totals right there. So all we're going to do is take those totals for current assets, but we also need to know what are the current liabilities. So let's go down here and look at the current liabilities. So current liabilities are bills that we have right now or bills that we have to pay within a year. So accounts payable, those are our vendors. Usually they give us about 30 or 60 days to pay those bills. So here we go. Taxes, oh man, Uncle Sam wants that money. Do not postpone paying Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam gets pretty upset when you don't pay him. All right, and then short-term notes payable. Short-term, in this case, we mean they're due within the year. So these are the current liabilities. So total current liabilities, here we go. All we need are the totals. There we are. All right, so I'm going to split the screen, and that way we can do some really quick calculations. Here we are. I've got this screen split and ready to go. And by the way, one thing I forgot to mention, that current assets and current liabilities, they're all found on the balance sheet. So we're analyzing the balance sheet. And for you people that are going to be business owners, this is really, really important that you take the time to do this and understand it so you know how your business is doing. So here we go. We've got current assets. Here are current assets for the year 2001. Let me get that highlighted a little bit here in a different color here just so it stands out a little bit. I'm not sure that stands out very much. There we go. Current assets, 381,850. Let's put that right up here. 381,850. And since we're at it, let's just write them down for each year. 650,000. There we go. 912. And what we're doing is we're comparing this over time just to see if things are getting better or not. Because when it comes to ratios, it's best to compare them against something. Maybe it's your how you did last year. Compare how you did with how you did last year. Compare how you want to do. That's a good thing. Compare how you want to do, or compare against competitors. But that's kind of tricky though, comparing against competitors, because no two businesses are really the same. They're even when they seem to be the same, like say Home Depot and Lowe's, there's some big differences. Like with Home Depot is much larger than Lowe's, and right there that has a big effect on things. So anyways, we write down the current assets, and what we're going to do is go down here and find the current liabilities. So here we go, the accounts payable, taxes payable, short-term notes payable. So here we are, the 206,750, put that right up there. The 412, there we go. The 226, 226,000, get there. There we go. 226,000, 420,000. So to find the current ratio, all we do is divide because we're comparing two items. We're just comparing two things. That's all we're doing. That's what we always do, just compare two things. So the current ratio for the first year is, if we do a little division, 1.85. I'll explain what this means in a minute. And if we divide the next year, 1.58. And the next year, 4.04. And do a little division for the last year, 2.41. So what does this mean? What's going on here? What does this ratio mean? Well, here's some things. Here's a rule of thumb that people use, and it's a rough rule of thumb, and it's not the gospel or anything, but it's just a rule of thumb that a lot of people say, hey, a current ratio of 2 is not bad at all. Current ratio of 2 is a good thing. Now, the current ratio for Sunset Sailboat Company in the first year is 1.85, pretty close to 2. But then in the second year, it dropped down to 1.58. So that might be a little concerning. Do we have enough money or money in the pipeline to pay our bills when the bills come due? But then in the third year, it jumps up to 4.04. What is up with that? And you might say, well, isn't that a great thing? Because now we've got more money to pay our bills with. And that's true. That is a good thing. And I'm sure it helps the managers sleep well at night, having a lot of resources to pay their bills. But there's some problems, though, that maybe the reason why the current assets jumped up so much is that maybe, their inventory isn't selling and their inventory is building up. Maybe their customers aren't paying them and accounts receivables building up. Because if you recall, the current ratio is made up of cash, receivables, and inventory, short-term investments, that kind of thing. And folks, if your customers are not paying you, my goodness, that's really bad. Now look at this in year 3. That is kind of the case here. It looks like accounts receivable really jumped, went from 250 to 420. Are the customers being slow to pay us? What's going on? I'd be a little worried about that. And so what I'm getting at is that, yeah, having a current ratio of 4.04 on the surface, that looks great. But underneath, you got to look underneath, though. Find out what's going on. Do we really have more cash, or are the customers being slow to pay us? Is our inventory not selling? We've got to think about that. So that high current ratio actually might be a signal that, things are not going well. Now in the fourth year, drop back down again. So I'd want to know, why did it drop down? I mean, what's going on here? All right. These are things that good managers look into. All right. If you want to be a good manager, you got to learn how to do this. And so there's the current ratio. So it dropped down in the second year, jumped way up in the third year, and dropped back down in the fourth year. So I'd want to know why. What's going on? Can we pay our bills? That's what I want to know. And so it's only a rough indicator. So what I've got next here, I've got a made-up competitor. So here's a made-up competitor, Captain Jack's Sailboats. 150, 130, 125, 120. Now, obviously here, Captain Jack's Sailboats current ratio is dropping and dropping and dropping. And like I said, a rule of thumb, and it's just a rule of thumb, that's all it is. It's not the gospel, but a good rule of thumb is to have a current ratio of like 2 or better as just a rough rule of thumb. And it looks like it's dropping and dropping and dropping. So it looks like their ability to pay their bills is weakening. Now, here's another way to read this, okay? Here's another way to read this. I want to bring this up. Here's what it is. So take Sunset Sailboat Company, the 1.85. Well, here's how you can read it. Is that for every $1.85 or I'm sorry, let me start over here. For every $1 bills, Sunset Sailboat Company has $1.85 to pay those bills. Now that's a really rough way to look at it. Really rough. In fact, if there are any other financial people who do this for a living, they might write in the comments that that's not a good way to do it. But it's a way to understand what's going on. So in the second year, for every $1 bills, Sunset Sailboat Company has $1.58 to pay those bills, all right? Just roughly speaking. But in the third year, for every $1 bills, they had $4.04 to pay those bills. And in the fourth year, for every $1 bills, they had $2.41 to pay those bills. So Captain Jack's sailboats, their ability to pay their bills is getting worse. So for every $1 bills, Captain Jack has $1.50 and $1.30 for the second year, $1.25. So things are going downhill for Captain Jack's. And if I was one of the managers or the owner of Captain Jack's sailboats, I'd want to know what is going on here, because this is really getting bad here. Things are going downhill. All right, let's see what else we have. So here's what the current ratio is all about. And here's some subtleties about the current ratio, all right? So here's the first thing. So number one, the current ratio, it's considered either a liquidity ratio or a solvency ratio. In textbooks, I see it either way. And liquidity and solvency, those are two words. They have different meanings, but a lot of people confuse the meanings of those two words and get it all mixed up. So liquidity means how quickly something can be turned into cash. All right. Now, cash is already turned into cash, so it's very liquid. Now, accounts receivable, when your customers pay you, then it becomes cash. If you've got inventory, well, you've got to first sell the inventory, then you've got to collect your money, and then it turns into cash, which takes longer. So liquidity means how long is it going to take? How quickly can you turn things into cash? Solvency, which is very related, means your ability to pay your bills when your bills come due. All right, so the two concepts are very related, and I can see why people get them mixed up. So the current ratio is considered either a liquidity ratio or a solvency ratio. I've seen it either way. All right, so here's the second thing. It indicates the short-term ability to pay bills. It's not the gospel. It's not like you have the ability to pay your bills. It doesn't go that far, but it's an indicator of your ability to pay your bills. Next thing about it, does not take the composition of current assets into account. So going down to the financial statements real quickly, here we go, is that to pay your bills, you need cash, all right? If you have a lot of cash, you can pay your bills. But if your money is tied up in accounts receivable, well, then you got to wait for your customers to pay you. And if your money is tied up in inventory, then you got to wait to sell the inventory. Then you got to wait to collect the money from the customers. Then it'll turn into cash. So your current ratio could be really high, could be a really high indicator. But what if your money's all tied up in inventory and your inventory's not selling? So the current ratio doesn't indicate any of this. You kind of have to dig in deeper and find out what's going on. So the fourth thing, does not indicate the uncollectible receivables or inventory that cannot be sold. So maybe your inventory is obsolete. Maybe nobody wants your inventory. Maybe what you're doing is you're trying to sell old Justin Bieber CDs or something, and nobody wants them. All right. Although I've heard that Justin Bieber is still really popular. I can't imagine why, but because nobody will admit that they listen to him. All right. So anyways, so the current ratio, it's not indicating if your receivables are uncollectible or if your inventory is obsolete. Lastly, paying off current liabilities with current assets will increase the current ratio. So here's what I mean, and I'm not going to go into detail here, but here's what it means: is if you take some of your money and you pay down some bills, your current ratio will actually get bigger. And you could test it out. I mean, you could just make up some numbers and say, well, what if we reduce our current assets by this much and we reduce our current liabilities by the same amount? Your current ratio goes up. And managers know this. And what they'll do sometimes is they'll pay off a lot of bills at the end of the year to make their current ratio look better, because they know that the owners of the business, the banks, lenders, that kind of thing, are going to be looking at this current ratio. So they'll do that. It's called window dressing, making the financials look better than they really are. So But here's some current ratios, and these are the latest and from the latest and greatest financial statements. And just to give you an idea of what current ratios are in different industries. So here's Walmart. You've probably been in Walmart. Theirs is 0.97. Oh my goodness. So for every $1 bills, Walmart only has 97 cents to pay those bills. My goodness, is Walmart going broke? Not in the least. Walmart is not going broke. Walmart is doing really, really well. And the way they get away with that is they say, hey, we sell the inventory, and we usually collect our money right away, right there at the cash register. But vendors, you're going to have to wait to get paid. You might have to wait 60 days, 90 days, whatever Walmart says. Walmart's the powerful company in the food chain, all right? And they do sell food. And so Walmart can get away with a very low current ratio because they just say, hey, we're not going to pay our bills until we say we will. All right. And then Southwest Airlines. I like Southwest Airlines. And their current ratio is 2. All right. And you might say, is that good or bad? Well, it does meet that criteria of 2, right? But here's the deal with Southwest Airlines is that I would check them against their competitors to know if they're doing well. And also over time, like we did with Sunset Sailboat Company. Apple Computer, 1.37, so that's pretty low too. I'm sure that Apple Computer is a very powerful company and says we'll pay our bills when we feel like it. Okay, so there you go. And Coors is 0.62. Oh my goodness. Before investing into Coors, I'd want to know, well, is this normal? Is this? But Coors operates in a very stable environment. When people are happy and the economy's good, people drink beer. And when people are unhappy and the economy's not good, people drink beer. So it's a very stable industry. So they might be able to get away with a low current ratio. But anyways, there we go, folks. Hope you liked the video. And let me know. Hit the like button, the subscribe button. And until next time, over and out.